All right, good morning, everybody. It's about 9 o'clock this morning. Sitting out here with my cup of coffee. Dogs out here playing around. You might hear some barking. Um, what I wanted to talk about was in this video was just, some Bernie Sanders and AOC stuff. These people are complete hypocrites. They're complete frauds. They're not for the everyday American. They don't stand with the everyday working man. These two people live lives completely outside of reality um, compared to the rest of us. Uh, that is not the lifestyle that these people live. They talk about socialism and all of this stuff, but they spend money like there's no tomorrow whenever they get a chance. Um, and they're just complete frauds. They're whispering sweet nothings into the ears of the American public and letting everybody know how they can have everything for free. And, Bernie Sanders and AOC are fighting the good fight for the American people. But that's not true. These two, they're just egotistical. They're narcissistic. They want to get into power, and that's all they want. They want the fame. They want the power. They want to stroke their egos and feel like they're important people at the forefront of solving the biggest problems in the country. That's all they're interested in is stroking their egos. They don't believe anything that they say. They're a bunch of frauds. So, we'll look at Bernie Sanders here a little bit. This is just some kind of quick little information I had looked up online. Um, so, Bernie Sanders has a net worth of $3 million. Okay. Bernie Sanders owns three homes. Okay. He has two in Vermont and one in DC. And one of his homes in Vermont, from what I was reading, is a seasonal home. Um, it's a lakefront property that he owns. Uh, he bought that place for about, from what I can gather, $575,000. Um, he owns seven cars in his car collection. Now, granted, they're not big fancy cars, like a lot of people own, celebrities and stuff. We're not talking $1 million car collections here. But Bernie Sanders owns seven cars. His nicest car, from what I read, and how relevant that information is, I don't think it was too old. But his nicest car was a Tesla Model S, of value at $80,000, and his entire car collection is valued at $240,000. So we're not talking tons of money, but you know, still, he has a car collection. Okay, Bernie Sanders has a net worth of $3 million. He owns three houses, and he has seven. He has a car collection with seven cars in it. Okay, does this sound like someone who believes in socialist ideals? Does this sound like a socialist person? Does this sound like somebody who preaches or who lives what he preaches? Uh, does this sound like somebody who is the everyday average American man working for hard to get justice for the American worker? Does this sound like that kind of person? Most people are lucky if they can own one house. Most people are lucky if they can own 1 to 2 cars that are reliable. Okay. So again, um, does this sound like an average person? No, it is not an average person. He lives outside of the reality for the majority of us. And, you know, so going back when they did this oligarchy tour, and it was Bernie Sanders and AOC, they spent all this money. Um, AOC spent thousands of dollars on luxury hotel rooms. So again, does that sound like somebody who is in the realm of the average person? Now, here on Bernie again. So in 2020, on the campaign trail, Bernie Sanders spent about $2 million in travel for that campaign. And when he was asked about this by a reporter, he said, well, it costs money. It just costs money to fly around the country and to stay in hotels and, go around and speak to groups of thousands of people. And you know what? He's absolutely right. Um, it does cost money to do things, okay? But this is where his hypocrisy comes in. Okay, if he can just simply justify and brush that off, hey, it costs money. I had to spend this almost $2 million for this campaign. It just costs money to do stuff. It's expensive. If he can acknowledge that, why can't he acknowledge that it costs money for business people to do business? Landlords that rent, okay? Why he thinks it's a good idea to put renters, to cap rents and things like that, you know, and these landlords say it costs money to do this stuff. It costs money to upkeep these buildings and all the other things that are involved. It costs money to pay for, the permits, the regulations, and all this stuff. You're not just paying rent, but you're paying for all of those services that go along with living in that building or that apartment or whatever, right? So if Bernie Sanders can understand that it costs money for him to fly around and do things, why can't he understand that it costs money for other people to do things as well? Complete hypocrite. Complete hypocrite, living completely outside of reality. Um, the rules apply for everybody else, but not for him. So again, him, people like AOC and the other Democratic socialists, they're whispering these sweet nothings in everybody's ear about how things can be free and the world can be rainbows, gumdrops, lollipops, and unicorns. All we have to do is put them in power. That's why these people are dangerous, uh, because they have no sense of reality. They just make up this world in their head that is not achievable. It's not possible. I had read somewhere that uh, the top 5% in the United States pays about $1.3 trillion in the taxes in this country every year. Um, you know, are they paying enough? I don't know. Uh, are they paying too much? Probably not. Um, do they deserve to be taxed more? I don't really think so. I mean, they're paying a lot of money into the system as well. In all these programs, these socialists talk about giving for free, healthcare, education, all these things, right? That they say they're going to give for free. Um, right now in the U.S., we do not even have the necessary funds to run things as they are right now. And they're talking about tacking on trillions of dollars more with all these programs. Where's that money going to come from? Oh, we're just going to tax the billionaire class. That's not going to be enough. If the top 5% are paying 1.3 trillion in the taxes for this country every year, let's say we double that. Let's say that we completely impoverish and destroy the billionaire and millionaire class by doubling their taxes. Okay, that's only going to generate another 1.3 trillion. So then they'll be paying in a total of, let's just say, uh, $2.6 trillion a year is what they'd be paying in, and we would completely destroy our billionaire and millionaire tax base. Um, so with that, that is still a very small amount of money. That's not going to be anywhere near being able to cover free healthcare for everybody and education and stuff. So going down this path of socialism and all this stuff and doing these things that these wackos are proposing is not the answer. That is not how we're going to fix the problems. You know what the problem is, and this isn't just here in the US. This is a global issue that is becoming more and more to the forefront, and there's no easy fix for it. It's sort of like those dystopian future movies you see, uh, is kind of unfolding to me. We cannot have infinite population growth around the world, and you can't have countries that allow infinite um, migration, illegal migration into the country, because you cannot have an infinite growth of the population when you're living in a system of finite resources. It's going to come to a head at some point. It is unsustainable and it will collapse at some point. Um, so, right now, what is being done, um, cleaning up all these programs, cleaning up the health programs and the education and all these things that we have, cleaning up all these programs for the American that are for American taxpayers, getting all the people that are here illegally out of the country is what has to be done in order to stabilize the systems that we have in place. These are the things that have to be taking place in order to try to maintain a stability within our system. Um, because if we do none of that, it's going to fail for sure. It's all going to collapse at some point. Um, and if we think we're just going to switch to a different form of government and that's the answer, that is not the answer. That is going to make things worse than they are right now. The answer is we have a good system, but it needs to be fixed. There are some really important issues that need to be addressed. And one of them is this idea that the US can have infinite population growth, because we only have a finite amount of resources. And those resources are getting stretched and they're getting thinner and thinner every day. And there isn't enough to go around for everybody. But yet, these socialist Democrats think we should just go ahead and bring in millions of more people and give everybody free stuff. Um, that sounds nice, all sitting around the campfire singing Kumbaya, having everybody just come into the country and giving everybody something for free. That sounds nice. I would like free health care and all these things, but I know the consequences that go along with that. I know the consequences of going down this path of socialism. Um, and I don't want that. I would probably benefit from socialism. I'm not rich. I don't have lots of stuff. I would probably benefit from that form of government, but I don't want that form of government. I have some pride in myself, and couldn't live with myself if I knew that the we had a socialist government and they took money out of Elon Musk's pocket and gave it to me. Um, I would sure like that. I mean, if I had a $500,000, that would change my life. I would like that, but it's not right. I wouldn't feel good about myself if that was the kind of society we had, and I don't want that. So it's not a good path to go down. These socialists are hypocrites. Bernie Sanders and AOC are hypocrites. They're complete frauds. They live outside of the reality of the average everyday American. Um, if Bernie Sanders came to me, if Bernie Sanders came to me personally and said, "You know what? I'm going to sell one of my homes and I'm going to give you the money from the sale of that house because I believe in socialism. So I don't believe that I have the right to three homes. So I'm going to sell one and give you the money because you don't have the kind of money and things that I have." And if he said, "Hey, I'm a true socialist and I believe that. And this is what I'm going to do for you," I would say, sure, I'll take that money then. If he offered it to me of his own free will, I would take that money. But you know what? He isn't going to do that. You know why? Because he does not believe in socialism. He is never going to do that. I can absolutely guarantee you he will never sell one of his homes and give the money away. Guaranteed. And none of these socialists are going to do that. You know, these socialist actors in Hollywood that have tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, houses all over the place, you know, $1 million car collections, and they preach about socialism. You know, if they actually would sell some of their stuff and give that money away, maybe I would give their ideology, uh I believe what they were saying a little bit more. But they're never going to do that. They will never ever do that. um Robert De Niro has a net worth of like $500 million. Okay, if he took some of his money of his own free will and gave it to me, because to show just how much he believes in socialists programs and that ideology and all these other things that are preached with socialism, if he believed that and gave me some of his money of his own free will, that would be fantastic. But I can guarantee you one thing: he is never going to do that. I heard, I don't know if this is true or not, but I had heard that he really didn't agree with what was going on in New York right now with Mayor Mamdani and the things that he's implementing in New York. Robert De Niro doesn't want to be in New York. He doesn't want any of the things that he has to be in jeopardy. His properties, his money, any of that. He doesn't like that idea. So that just shows how much he truly believes in all these ideologies and things he talks about. It's talk, and that's all it is. When it comes to actually having to pony up some money, when it actually comes to maybe some of your property and things like this being at risk, he turns tail and runs. Um, so again, these people are complete frauds. They don't believe what they say. Don't listen to them. They're dangerous. They're egotistical. They're narcissists. They think they're taking the moral high ground and they're better than everybody else. We don't want to listen to these people. Don't give them a platform. Don't vote for them. These people in Hollywood, as far as I'm concerned, Hollywood's can go away. I I don't really go to a lot of movies or anything anymore. The last one I went to was, I saw the Odyssey. Um, but I really used to like going to movies and all this stuff. But Hollywood's just irrelevant. It doesn't even need to exist anymore. A lot of the people, there's a ton of good people in Hollywood that I really like, but there's a ton of garbage too. And as far as I'm concerned, all of that can just go away. I'm tired of all these people, these hypocrites, these frauds, these narcissistic, egotistical people that think they're important, um, out there in the world, telling the rest of us average people how we should be living, how we should do it. Um, they tell us all this stuff, but none of that applies to them. Um, you know, it's like, this video is a bit long, but I'll keep going here for a minute. It's like Billie Eilish in that whatever she was in, the Grammys or whatever, when she said, "Oh, nobody's illegal on stolen land." Okay, well, if the land's stolen, right? People went to her house. Hey, let me into your house. Let me into your house. You think she did that? No. Um, so, do you think she sold or shared any of her properties with anybody? Because it's not illegal for everybody to be in her house. People should just be, according to Billie Eilish, people should just be able to walk up and enter her house, because that house isn't really hers. It's stolen land that that house is on. So nobody being there is illegal. Again, these people just talk. They have absolutely no clue what they're talking about. They have no clue about reality. They live in la la land. And you know, like I said, the rules apply for everybody else, but not for them. Now, I don't want to hear from them anymore. They can go away, as far as I'm concerned. They're irrelevant, and I don't care about anything they have to say. So I think I'll leave the video there. That's a bit long and winded and ranty, maybe, but there it is. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.